Okay, so over in the spray bay, got the Tornado all sorted out and looking pretty good, I must admit, no problem at all. Apart from the rat ones driving me mad. Anyway, when it's down, nobody will notice. So next up, we're going to be using the black work. Now, using black work, as you know, primarily I do it for doing the canopies. Basically, it stops it looking too translucent, i.e. just with paint on, you can see light through them. Putting a good black coat through there stops that, so when the next coats go over, especially grey and the green, you're not going to be able to see through them. The other thing as well is from the inside it appears black, so it just saves having to mask the inside. Sort of secondary purpose to this as well is to check all the seams and make sure they're all good. If there's any problems, we can spot them right now at this point, get the filler out or the sanding sticks or whatever we need to do to actually correct the problem before you move into something like primers and paints where it's a lot more hassle to try and fix the problem. So, usual thing, flat black, or in this case I'm using black rubber, which is my latest favourite colour. I've given up on Tamiya XF1, I prefer Tamiya XF85, I think it's a far more natural scale effect. Okay, this is a brand new pot, and we're just going to tip a bit in here. See, we're not going to need gallons for this. Okay, we're just going to check our flow. Happy with that. So because it's nice thick paint and neat, you're not going to get any bleed through problems and stuff like that on the canopy. So we can just put this down, and you're looking to see if you've got any seam lines, joins, anything else like that. So quite a nice, generous, decent thick coat of paint coming in from all your angles. Okay, right the way over. And the nice thing about using a black paint is obviously it dries extremely quickly, which is dead handy for us because obviously you can just move on. Now, a secondary point to this, that one's on, really happy. Looking around, you want to see how the actual clear parts are sat. Now, obviously the big one at the back is a free floating part, but the front canopy, you're looking to see if you've got any gaps, all right? So if you've got a gap there, quite straightforward, you can come along, fill it, sand it, give it another coat of this and get rid of it because there's nothing worse than seeing gaps on there. Secondary process, we can use it because it's in here and it dries really quickly. You can check all your seams and your joins. So we know we've got seams like down here, so we're just going to give this a go over, and to be honest we can see it. I couldn't see it before with the naked eye, now you've got paint on it. I've got a slight blemish at the top there at the wing root as it's going to join in, but generally you're just going along and we're going to see how that filler looked as we did those filler plates at the back. Actually that's quite good, it's more noticeable the one behind, but we've got this seam here, we can have a look, check how the wing, the tail sits to the fuselage. Get hold of this, quite tricky to hold this one. Okay, and just working our way around the entire model, seeing how things are on. So we can see how the refueling probe, those guns are. This clear part down here I'm not worried about, I'm going to scratch clean it because it's like a brick, so okay. The other gun, and you can generally just see how things are. So we're quite complicated how a lot of this went together. And doing the paint run, you can see exactly, so we had those little door areas down here underneath the actual front of the wings there. You can check those, see how those are. The seams, really, how all those seams came together. So if you remember back, we had quite a complicated seam running down this back, okay? And it actually is, with paint on, where we rescribed it, absolutely fine. Really happy with how that is. Okay, so we've got this other one running down in here, so we'll do the front, and where it all joined onto the front, we can put good dollop of back paint, we can check all those seals, everything under the front, just to see how we all exactly are, and hopefully you can see it's looking really nice, got no problems with any of that down in that front. It's all rescribed nicely, it's all gone in very well. Okay, and everything else. Now the actual intakes themselves, we're going to blow some paint down there as a separate before we start painting and everything else, so don't worry too much of getting black paint down there, but you don't want to overdo it. A little airbag system, we're going to do those just to make sure they're all okay. But generally checking on this one, I think it, you know, it's not me, it's actual kit, goes together really, really nicely. So a lot of people see me do this and think I'm pre-shading. I'm not, it's just to literally check to see how things are, because when you're using a flat paint you can see so much more. Okay, so really happy how that is, although I can see one little fault there which we're going to need to do and everything else. So if we pop that down and we move this guy out of the way, hopefully you can see if we can find different ways to hold it. You're looking round, so let's go back to the canopy. Really happy how that's on. That's no problem at all. Fits very, very nicely. The refueling probe is sitting in there very good. We've got no gaps. It's not floating away or anything else like that, so that's handy. You can see down the bottom here how well that underside went in. So where we've rescribed it and taken care of that to get that nice bottom seam in, and obviously with the side seams and everything else, I've got a tiny little mark up here I want to take care of, so I'm going to put a couple of swipes of a sanding stick on there. But generally looking around the rest of it, really happy how this rear part came up as well, where we had that fit issue with it. That's gone completely taken care of now and everything else like that. So apart from sounding like a rattle, it's gone together really nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some sanding sticks out, have a couple of swipes at it here and there just to tidy up a few little areas, okay, and then what we can actually do is start to get some primer on this. Okay, so the black work's dry now, and this is what we're saying about it's a nice time. Little couple examples here. You can see here we've got this one here. This is that little panel. It's tiny, so I think we can probably get away with quite a fine gripped sanding. But what you can do, you see, you've got the black line there. We're going to do it until it goes. It's as simple as that. Now, if it was something really deep, you would obviously use a little bit of filler. But I'm thinking here with a couple of swipes like this. You can see it's starting to go there now. Just got a little bit on the front, but it's a good way of identifying faults, blemishes, and anything else like that, because as you can see, it's getting smaller as we go in. But you can sort of get rid of all those little tiny imperfections. And you don't have to get rid of it totally, but as you can see there, it's got a small little dot left. That's probably good enough, just in this area here. But it's a good way of checking to make sure your work is pretty much flawless at this point without having that hassle, because we can go over this as we will in a moment. Got a tiny little bit of glue mark down here, so you can see just under here, just down the top. It's a glue mark actually from a peg, you know, little things like that, and you can do it quite a lot. And as you can see, you still got all that detail showing through, so we're not worried about that too much. You're not going to cover it. And like for instance, you might be able to see it on the canopy work here. If I just take it off, just here I had a blemish, so what we've done, we've sanded it, taken it down, got it all out. The other thing as well, we've got the black mark on here. So apart from that, pretty much fine with everything. Got a little tiny one up here on the tail, so I remember it. So again, we're just going to take it out. Got a small little centre seam on there. That's those gone, no problem at all. So what you can do, come back with your black, and we're just going to grab a little bit more. Okay, tiny bit in there, and we can just respray these areas to make sure we're happy with them. Let me just move that canopy over a little bit. So this little guy down here, we're just going to come in. Okay, no problem. Just under here again, just to check. That's okay now. On the top, probably got a tiny little bit of a mark still there, but I'm quite happy with how that one is. All right, we're just going to do down in there. Now we've got these little areas with the white, so what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to airbrush them. So we're coming from the overshoot and coming inwards, and we do them like that. Now if you're not too sure about your spraying, you know, then obviously you might want to mask it, but it'll just take care of these so they nicely all blend in. Okay, take one here. But if you overshoot instead of undershoot, it won't matter. Okay, that's those taken care of. So now what we can do, grab our cockpit, pop it back in, seat it down again so we're happy. So we just got this area at the front. Okay, and we're just going to pop back in, run it over, a little bit more just around the top here just to blend it all in. And we're all good to go, and we're absolutely happy how that one all is. But it's just that thing, taking a small amount of time to fix little problems which will turn into big old problems a little bit later on. So really happy with that now, absolutely everywhere. So what we can do now is literally clear some of this away and we can get going with the primer. Okay, so with those bits done, repainted in, looking the part, we can get on with priming. So what we've got down here is my little tub of all the bits and pieces we had. So we've got the fuel tanks, we've got the flaps, we've got the leading edge slats on it, we've got the doors, you know, the pylons, you name it, everything we need basically for the model that isn't attached is in here. So what we're going to do is literally paint or prime the entire model, so it's basically ready for the paint. The reasons we do this, twofold. Secondly, really is for checking for blemishes and that, which we've really taken care of doing the little black areas. But the first one is basically, it gives the next coat of paint, your proper paint if you like, a nice keyed surface to grip to. So it will stop you getting runs, you know, and drips forming and things like that. And it should give you a more universal thing, because if you've got glue marks and filler and things like that down, but you haven't done the black work like we've done here before, what's going to happen is it's going to have a different effect. And if you're using especially things like glosses and that, it can give different colours even as you're going over. But certainly by priming it, what that does, it makes an even playing field right the way over the entire model, which just makes airbrushing a lot easier. Now, as I said, I try and do something different with every type of build. I think I've covered most things now over the last 10 years, so we're going back a little bit of a step, because you can go out and buy, and I'm looking around for them quickly here. We've got down here, obviously you can use polyurethane primers. I use Mr. Surfacer 1200 thinned with enamel thinners. That's a great primer as well if you do it that way. You can also buy other primers. You can have a rattle can, car primers and everything else. Or what I tend to do as well, for speed as well, especially because it's great because it dries almost instantly, is just to use a grey paint of what you're going to use as well. So for instance, this black down here, which we sprayed on neat, as you can see, actually gives quite a nice finish. It's not like a rough, sandy finish. So we're going to do a universal colour. Now we're using grey, and obviously our base colour for the model is going to be grey as well with the green camo. So, you know, sometimes it's better to keep away from it, but you find grey works great. It's a nice medium colour that goes with everything, because we're going to be spraying a little bit of white on this for intakes gear, so we can use the grey, we can see exactly where we're going with it. But also, obviously we've got grey and the green, so tend to fix with the colour, but you don't necessarily have to go with a grey colour. I know car primers tend to be grey, but a lot of the armour guys, they will use things like, and I've got one here, this is like a rusty colour, which is that nice sort of authentic primer colour that you can get as well for cars. So if you're doing anything with armour or vehicles, perhaps you might want to use that type of one to keep it authentic. And obviously you can get other sort of colours like chromate type colours as well, which are primers as well, just like the real thing have to protect the paintwork. But from our point of view, we're just going to pick a grey. So for this one, we're just going to use a light grey, which so we've got XF66. Obviously it needs to be a flat just to make it key to grip. You don't use a gloss, okay, or anything else like that. If you wanted to, you could use a satin. I've done that before because of I was doing gloss aircraft, things like that. A nice satin finish is quite nice. So anyway, this is a brand new bottle, hence it's getting a good old shake. So in here, to be honest, I haven't cleaned out my airbrush. It's still got black in there, but it's not going to hurt anything. So we're going to go with our thinners first, and we're going to do, because it's Tamiya, I'd normally do a sort of 50-50 mix. For this particular one, actually, I'm going to do more of a sort of 2/3 paint to 1/3 thinners. Okay, so make sure it gets a good old mix, but as you can see, the black that was in there isn't affecting anything. It's not suddenly making this a dark grey. Okay, so there we go, that's him. Make sure it's mixed thoroughly, especially if it's a new bottle. All right, and then we're just going to pop the lid on, because I don't want to destroy my nice new. This is a cake painter's base, all right? Don't buy the cheap ones like I used to have, which I've still got somewhere, which isn't a metal pin in the middle, because quite frankly, they don't rotate. This is a baker's one off of eBay, cost absolute peanuts, all right? You can buy them, they're plastic and they don't really spin, but the idea is you put your model on, and when you're painting it, you can sort of maneuver it around without actually grabbing your model. But obviously we're doing primer work, so I'm just going to move that out of the way because I don't want to wreck it. We'll just grab a little bit more. Where's my little cleaning station? Cleaning station can double up as my holder. That's it. So we just pop a little bit more of this down, just because I don't want to paint my bench. Okay. So literally just going to pop that down, because it's going to get a little bit messy and it's going to get foggy. So my extractors, you know them, they're my little ones, but I've got two bunched together in daisy chain form. They're just in front of me, which you can see on the corner of your screen. So we're just going to check our flow, wait for the grey to come through, grey's in. Okay, so exactly the same as you were painting before really. You want it thick enough that it's going to actually cover, you know, your entire model and paintwork, but you don't want to do it too thick that's going to flood everything. Now the idea is, first of all, as I do this, I'm just going to run around with just air. I'm blowing up all the dust that I brought in when I was doing all that sanding. To be honest, I already have done this, so I'm really just showing you. Okay, it's important because if you've done a sanding job, that dust will make your paintwork and the texture feel really, really rough. All right, but usual thing, we're just going to come in, check our flow, happy with that, and it's a lighter coat on the areas here. Because we've already done it, okay, we can actually come in quite heavy with our grey and put it down. But as you can see, it's quite a nice smooth coat going in. All right, but when you get to just the plastic areas like this wing, we're just going to put a dusty coat over first, cut to air, so it's air only, and we're going back over it again. All right, and then once we've done that, we come in again with our paint, and we're going to paint right the way over the top. Okay, a couple of coats. If you've got an air in it looks really rough, just give it a little bit more. Then cut in with air, just to put a little skin over it. It's acrylic, it's a warm day, it'll dry really quick, okay? Okay, and all we're gonna do is go around that entire model, all right? Now, it is, I'll be honest with you, it gets a bit smoky in here when you're doing this, so I'm just gonna turn on my extractors. I've got twin ones, gonna be a bit noisy, but it's good. I'm shooting all my stuff here. You can probably see it on the corner here. It's down there, it's a nice big one, this big, but it's great for this, it'll clear the air. This little bit of white on the back, which I forgot to take off. What it was, I put in the arrestor cable, and the tack was literally just to hold it down. It was bulging up a little bit, so I put the tack in there just to hold it down. Okay, so we're just going to go right the way over. Make sure you get in all your wheel wells. But when you're coming in, once you've got a coat on there, nice big heavy thick coat, which is a nice smooth area. If you come in too light and it's too dry when you're actually airbrushing, what's going to happen is you're going to have a very rough texture. So by doing it this way, you just end up with a very nice, very smooth finish. Make sure you do your leading edges, trailing edges. Spoke about it in one of the shows recently. When you get an edge, it's 90 degrees, a nice big heavy coat, one pass rather than a light one, otherwise you're going to end up with rough texture. Okay, now the other thing as well, check your nozzle when you're doing things like this, we're getting low. Hopefully you might be able to see I've got two little balls on the end of my needle guard. That will affect your spray pattern as well. So just make sure if you've got a pinch clean one, you clean them off. If you've got the other rotary one, then what you want to do is obviously have a wet cloth or a cotton bud and just give it a wipe. Okay, so we're about halfway. I'm going to flip it over when this dries so I can get a hold of it, because obviously we're holding it at the tail. When that's done, obviously we'll go round, all completely finished. We're going to do all the little bits and pieces, the tailplane, the pylon, so everything's covered in primer.
Bye.